Hi, welcome to Borges Ranch City Park here in Walnut Creek, California. My name's Cody Davis, and I'm going to be leading you on your interpretive walk today. Behind me is the old Borges Ranch house, which is where we're going to be starting our tour. What I hope to teach you guys today is how the family was able to survive out here, not in a town, but up in the hills right by Mount Diablo. The way they did this is by three main ways. They made their own materials, they raised their own animals for food and for clothing, as well as they operated a cattle ranch, which is what this area is still currently used for today. So let's go look around the house and see how they grew their own food, materials, as well as operating a beef ranch. So behind me are some of the animal pens found here at the Borges Ranch. This is where the family would have kept pigs, goats, and sheep that they would have then used to collect a lot of the materials that they needed for their daily life, whether that be the wool for their clothing and also to sell in town, goats for milk, as well as meat, and the pigs, which they would then sell and harvest either as the animal or by products themselves. Right now, this area is still currently used to hold animals. Behind me, you can see some of the pygmy goats that the Pleasant Hill 4-H group uses as a demonstration animal to bring to local events to teach the public about what these animals are for and about agriculture, which is what a lot of people are starting to now not live on a farm. They don't know much about where their food comes from, so what this group does is they'll bring these animals, teach them about what the Borges Ranch family did by making their own food and raising these animals. The reason why the Pleasant Hill 4-H group uses these pygmy goats is they're small enough that a lot of people aren't scared of them. Like bringing a cow could possibly scare some families, whereas these goats are small, friendly, and an easy way to relate to people because they can show them that they are useful for gathering wool and hair, as well as they are still a mammal, so they produce milk that can still be used to make butter, cheese, which they can then sell for a profit to maintain their family way of life. So behind me is the Borges Ranch's family's chicken coop. Right now, currently a dozen chickens are living here, and the family could have had more. What they would do is they would house the chickens in here, which is where they would roost during the night, and then during the day they would let them out. They would eat the grass and bugs for them to eat, as well as they would feed them some of the food scraps that they would make as a family. The nice thing about having one centralized chicken coop is the chickens like to roost at night. Chickens don't move around at night, they can't see well, so what they'll do is they'll lay down, and that's where they lay their eggs. So then in the morning when the family wakes up, they'll send their kids out before they go to school, collect the eggs, which they would then either eat for breakfast or then sell them in town. So, back in the day, what kind of clothing did most people wear? Is it the stuff that we wear today for our garments? This is called polyester. So polyester is made out of plastic. So what did they wear back in the day? If you think of natural fibers like cotton or wool, that's what they would have made a lot of their clothing out of. So what this family did is they also, besides raising cattle, was they raised a large flock of sheep. What they would do with these sheep then is while their wool grew, is they would then take it and clip it and then spin that into yarn, which they could then make into clothing. So if you look in here in this barn, on the wall, you'll see a lot of tools and farm implements that the family would have used to maintain their farm, as well as some of the shears that they would have used to clip their sheep to collect that wool before turning it into yarn, as well as a wagon that the family would have then used to take all the goods and raw material that they would have gotten from collecting milk from their goats and sheep, meat from their pigs that they would have processed, and the wool that they would have collected, and then bring that into town. Because since they're a beef cattle ranch, they would have only gotten one payday when they sell all their beef at auction once a year. And can you imagine living off of one paycheck a year? So what the family did is they would take what they grew as a family and they collected every day, so eggs, wool, and clothing. They would sell it in town to keep making money throughout the year, so that when they did need to go to town to buy something that they needed that they couldn't make on their own, they would still have some sort of currency to make and bring and buy on their own terms. As the family started to mechanize their farm, they started to buy tractors to help them till the fields, to help move their cattle, to increase proficiency and efficiency of growing and what they could sell here on the ranch. These are two examples of some of the tractors they would have used, as well as an old trailer that they could have pulled their hay on to sell in town. And then also behind me is one of these manure spreaders. What they would do with the manure spreaders, they would collect the manure over time from their sheep, goats, horses, and cattle if they were stored in one of the small pens. And they would take this out and spread it all over one of the fields to help nourish some of the fields that were lacking in nutrients. This would then in turn grow a healthier and more nutritious food for their beef cattle to eat. So behind me you'll see some of the cows that are raised here at Borges Ranch currently. Historically this was a beef cattle ranch. So to tradition, there is a local rancher who still uses this property as his source to grass feed his beef. So up here we have some Angus steers. A steer is a castrated male bull. It's the most common source of beef in America. We use steers. What they are doing is they right now are on pasture in this small paddock area. A paddock is one section of land that is cut off just for this grazing area, and one farm will have multiple paddocks. So what they do is they use this electrical fence, and you can see this yellow sign right here. It's a portable electric fence, so they can move the cows from one area to another using this electric fence that they set up, and the cows will stay in that area, and if it's small enough, they will just eat all the grass and all the vegetation in that area so that they're not picky and choosy, because a cow likes to eat just one thing that it likes. It's very particular about what it eats. But if you give it a small area with multiple cows in one small area, they will eat everything, because they know that as soon as their 2 months are up, they're moved to another paddock, and then they have to eat all what's there again. So 2 months sounds long to you, but with these areas, the cows don't have that much time to be picky and choosy, so they'll eat it all. Once they're moved over, the benefit of them constantly being moved is the dirt and the soil that they're walking on is turned over, allowing for more aeration, which allows the seeds of the plants to get back into the ground. They're also moving what they're eating through their manure into different spots, so it spreads all over each paddock, so that each area that they eat will sooner or later have a very wide range of what is offered to eat, so that everything's uniform, and then the soil health is much healthier for the cows to eat from. So this is our last stop on our tour. This is the Borges Ranch's blacksmithing shop. Here, this is where the family would have made all the tools and materials that they needed to maintain and operate this family's ranch. They couldn't just go to the store to buy what they needed. It would just be too expensive, as well as it would waste the entire day getting to and from town. So what they would do is they would make their own nails to help build their houses and their barns. They would make their horseshoes for the horses to maintain the horses' health, as well as the barbed wire fencing they would use to make the perimeter of their property. Throughout this tour, we talked about how the family maintained and operated their business by raising cattle, by moving them from paddock to keep a healthy structure, as well as collecting animal products like eggs, wool, and milk from their smaller animals, to operating their own blacksmithing shop so that they could all be self-sufficient, and that way the family didn't have to rely on going into town to get what they needed. They could survive and live on their own here on the ranch if they needed to. I hope you all enjoyed your tour of the Borges Ranch, and I hope you spend the rest of your time while here exploring the many trails that we have of the Diablo foothills, maybe going to see some of those animals a little bit closer, as well as maybe going to go take some pictures on those old tractors that we got to play on. This still is a working ranch, so be careful while you're on the trails to make sure you don't spook any of the cattle, because they do still wander around because you are in such a large paddock and you are in their territory. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you around soon.